waiting for? Do you even know anymore?
These are people who work hard but no longer have a voice. I am your voice.
Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new live stream. Make sure you guys smash that like button down below. Let's get to 100 likes. That's the face cam requirement. And we got a lot to talk about tonight. I'm going to touch base on the confirmation hearing drama. And we're going to be getting into the super chats as well. We already have several super chats. The goal this time we're setting the goal for 30 super chats, teal and above, which is $5 and above. If we could set that as our goal, we're already 20% of the way there, which is great news. So we're going to be getting into all of that, but hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. We're almost to 215,000. We're going to be doing some content on the way as well. No video posted today. We'll do a video tomorrow. But that's the channel update aspect of it. We are going to be talking about the confirmation hearings. I wanted to touch base on the whole plane crash fallout as well, because that's definitely been in the news. I mean, this is not a common occurrence. It's not an occurrence at all in a first world country, but sadly, we are not a first world country anymore by many metrics. So hopefully we won't stay this way for very much longer. But once again, you have a theme of politicization, mainly from the left, where they're trying to blame the guy who's been in office for 10 days instead of the guy who's been there for 4 years. Little bit strange, honestly, how that really pans out for a lot of these things. Remember inflation? That's all Trump's fault now because of the bird flu. Is causing egg inflation to go up further, even though that was already taking place under Biden. It's not like Donald Trump can wave a magic wand and basically, I guess you would say, fix every single problem in the United States. Who would have guessed? Doesn't mean he's not going to try. Doesn't mean he's not going to work, but these things take longer than one day. And when it comes down to what happened in D.C., it's a horrible tragedy. Nobody should be saying otherwise. You have a plane crash, the first commercial American plane crash with a fatality since 2009, which I believe crashed in Buffalo, New York, or that region. You did have a flight on Southwest in 2018, I believe, that had an accident with a fatality where somebody was ejected from or by the window, but that technically was not a plane crash. That was more of a machine malfunction. But the bottom line is these things are rare. They don't just happen usually in this country on a day-to-day basis. Third world countries, plane crashes are a little bit more common. You've seen Malaysian Airlines, they had like 3 or 4 plane crashes, several planes going missing. Back in like 2014, that was a whole big ordeal. That was over 10 years ago. And now 2025, we have an instance where you have a plane carrying 60 passengers, small plane, but still a plane, flying from Wichita, Kansas to Washington, D.C., about to land at Reagan International Airport, also known as DCA, in Washington, right across the Potomac. And then what happens? You have a military helicopter that is flying. For some reason, couldn't see the plane. We don't know what exactly happened on that front, but the helicopter crashes into the plane, and then the plane just crashes into the river, and then 60. There's gonna be some questions, as well as there should be questions. Doesn't mean that people are gonna delve into conspiracy land by just saying, well, who was controlling the FAA? What were they doing at the time? And what were the military pilot doing? Because these are very important questions that do need to be answered, and it doesn't seem like we really have a lot of the answers. But one thing that we can point to is the fact that Hold on, we're having some technical difficulties, guys. We're having some technical difficulties. Let's see. Are we back? It does seem as if we're back. We're having some technical difficulties for some reason or another, but we are back now. And the bottom line that I was referencing here is just the fact that you don't know who exactly is to blame, but we do know that the standards of people that they've been letting into these posts and letting into these positions is indeed much lower. That threshold has been lowered significantly. They're recruiting from schools where the average GPA is like a 2.3 of people who get into those colleges, and they're like HBCUs or whatever, because they care more about the way a lot of these people look than they care about the actuality of their job performance, which is a very important job. And I'm not entirely saying that it's 100% DEI, it's 100% this or 100% that, but you've had this over the past 4 years. You've had bad policy that has impacted these agencies over the past 4 years. And Donald Trump gets in there, day one, he's going to try to push it out. It's going to take longer than just a day to do it. And that's what people don't understand. You have a lot of people on the left, they're saying because Donald Trump fired some people that were vaguely involved with the transportation department, that Donald Trump is causing plane crashes. That's just lunacy. I'm more inclined to believe that it was the bad policy of the Biden administration that prevented a lot of competent people from getting into these positions. That's likely what is going to cause some problems. And I'm not even saying it's just that, but how did they not see the helicopter? There was some miscommunication or something. It's a tragedy first and foremost, but still, this cannot happen again. And in order to ensure it doesn't happen again, we need people going out there that are competent and effective and efficient, and make sure they're the people in these positions and not DEI hires or people like that, because it's not just this. How many close calls have we seen over the past 5 years? We've seen a lot of them. We've seen plenty. This one was a little bit too close, and it cost a lot of lives. And we need to make sure that doesn't happen. And to make sure that it doesn't happen, we need to make sure that we have people in these positions of power in our government that actually know what they're doing and are actually qualified, not just, we put these people in because it's like feel good. Oh, we have to hit this quota. It's Marxism is what it is. They're trying to, set the playing field of the level of the equality of outcome, not opportunity. It's outcome, because you have opportunity in a meritocracy-based system. You would have, if you're this identity or this ethnicity, you're going to have that same opportunity. What the left is doing is they're giving out opportunities to people who are not qualified for said opportunities just because of their skin color, because of X, Y, and Z, some other identity, because, they needed to be 50% female, they needed to be 40% minority, whatever. That's not how we should be looking at these things. That doesn't matter. Not only is it discriminatory, it also puts an asterisk next to any accomplishment that any supposed group the left likes to coddle even gets. They obviously don't care about that, and we understand that, but it's like, it's about time we have leadership that's going to speak up about this. And some people will say, well, we don't know if it's directly correlated to this case. But the bottom line is we've seen a lot more of these, the more we've had unqualified people in these positions of power. And it lowers workplace morale as a whole. It's not just the diversity hires that are unqualified. It lowers morale as a whole typically when they do this sort of thing. And what that does is it weakens everybody's job performance across the board. It's a common saying, the chain is only as strong as its weakest link, and that's 100% true in this case. And we need to be hiring people based on merit regardless, and that's the main takeaway that people should be having, is how do we improve these agencies? That's one of them. You have a lot of liberals that are in hysteria right now because Donald Trump is actually being a good president like we thought he would be. And they can't handle that because he's going out there and he's calling out their bullshit. And they can't handle that because these are weak-minded people and they can't handle being called out for just the basic reality that you're not going to be coddled, in terms of the people in power. These are positions that are going to go to the most qualified individuals, regardless of their ethnic background, regardless if they're male or female, regardless of whatever. They can't handle that because they understand that it runs contrary to their worldview, which runs contrary to human nature in general. But that's a whole nother discussion. The bottom line is you have a president again. We didn't have a president for 4 years. We have a president again who's going out there and is calling out the FAA, and he called out Buttigieg. I want to play this clip. It's 3 minutes. Maybe we'll skip around a little bit, but I wanted to play it from the press conference because it's just so good that we have leadership that is able to call it out the way that the average American sees it, not the way that's scripted, not this, politician BS, like the actual unfiltered truth about these things. It may not be politically correct to say, but it's something that people need to hear. Whether it was fully, this whole tragedy was fully downstream of DEI directly or indirectly, the bottom line is we need to make changes in the FAA. People say Trump needs to not fire people. No, we need to fire more people, dipshit. Okay, if you have people that are so bad in the FAA, it's clearly not that there's not enough people. It's that there's too many incompetent people, whether it's all just because they're diversity hires or not. There are people that should be fired after this. There absolutely should be. If you're a serious country with a serious government, people should be fired after something like this happens. Otherwise, you're not a first world country. You're a joke. And that's what the U.S. has become. And then you have people like Donald Trump that get in there that are trying to reverse that. And then you have the left that's going to throw a collective temper tantrum because he's going out there and trying to reverse that. But I wanted to play this clip really quickly here. It's 3 minutes long, but we're going to play parts of it for sure.
Have more to say about that. I do want to point out that various articles that appeared prior to my entering office, and here's one. The FAA's diversity push includes focus on hiring people with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities. That is amazing. And then it says FAA says people with severe disabilities are most underrepresented segment of the workforce, and they want them in, and they can be air traffic controllers. I don't think so. This was in January 14th, so that was a week before I entered office. They put a big push to put diversity into the FAA's program. Then another article, the Federal Aviation Administration, this was before I got to office, recently, second term. The FAA is actively recruiting workers who suffer severe intellectual disabilities, psychiatric problems, and other mental and physical conditions under a diversity and inclusion hiring initiative spelled out on the agency's website. Can you imagine? These are people that are, actually, their lives are shortened because of the stress that they have. Brilliant people have to be in those positions, and their lives are actually shortened, very substantially shortened because of the stress, where you have many, many planes coming into one target, and you need a very special talent and a very special genius to be able to do it. Targeted disabilities are those disabilities that the federal government, as a matter of policy, has identified for special emphasis in recruitment and hiring. The FAA's website states they include hearing, vision, missing extremities, partial paralysis, complete paralysis, epilepsy, severe intellectual disability, psychiatric disability, and dwarfism all qualify for the position of.
It's insane. You're talking about the most crucial people that you need to make sure that these deadly plane crashes, because if a plane goes down, it's not like a car driving into a stop sign. It's not like you have something along those lines taking place. It's like a full-on disaster. Everybody's dead. You need very competent people, and they're talking about putting in people in positions of power, specifically seeking out people with epilepsy or these other mental disabilities. DEI goes far beyond just race. That's one thing. But, if you're talking about making sure you hire people for these jobs that are basically incapacitated in certain ways, or they're not able to perform the job well, and you're seeking out, what type of country would do this to themselves? I just don't understand it. It's you're shooting yourself in the foot willingly for the sake of what? Why? I mean, you'd have to think the people in charge would hate the country, would want people to die if that's what they're doing. But in many cases, they're just incompetent, and they see this as powerful, empowering, whatever. It's killing people. DEI is DIE. Whether this is directly related or not, we need to talk about it. We need to talk about it because it's 100% true that this is going on, and we need to make sure we get it out, because that's step one in ensuring that we have a competent FAA where this stuff doesn't happen. Because even if this, you want to say, was an accident, a full-on accident, it would have happened regardless if you have the most qualified people in there or not, which I find it a little bit difficult to believe. But let's just, for the sake of argument, accept that. There's been too many close calls over the years, and we need to make sure that we stop these close calls from happening. And the best way to do that is have the most competent people that aren't sought out because they happen to look different or have a disability in many cases. Well, what type of people are these people that have been running our government for the past 4 years? I mean, I don't know. That is just insane. And just because Donald Trump's been president for 10 days doesn't mean all the problems are going to go away. If you want to blame Trump for this, then, I mean, you're just an idiot. Like, that's the main takeaway here, because he's actually trying to make sure these things don't happen. And then you're out there blaming him because he's firing people that want to make sure these things happen, even though those firings basically have had zero impact on this in and of itself. It doesn't really add up to me, but that's how these people operate. This is Trump's America, Trump's presidency all over again. The left, they're still finding ways to be annoying, finding ways to be very loud, and just whining about everything, trying to blame everything on Donald Trump, whether it applies or doesn't apply. And most obviously, if not all cases up to this point, don't apply. So that's kind of what you have to deal with here. But there's more. He eviscerates Pete Buttigieg. I want to make sure that we get to that part of the clip. There's about 1 minute and 23 seconds left on it.
A controller of airplanes pouring into our country, pouring into a little spot, a little dot on the map, a little runway. The initiative is part of the FAA's diversity and inclusion hiring plan. Think of that. The initiative is part of the FAA's diversity and inclusion hiring plan, which says diversity is integral to achieving FAA's mission of ensuring safe and efficient travel. I don't think so. I think it's just the opposite. The FAA website shows that the agency's guidance on diversity hiring were last updated on March 23rd of 22. They wanted to make it even more so. And then I came in, and I assume maybe this is the reason. The FAA, which is overseen by Secretary Pete Buttigieg, a real winner. That guy's a real winner. Do you know how badly everything's run since he's run this Department of Transportation? He's a disaster. He was a disaster as a mayor. He ran his city into the ground, and he's a disaster now. He's just got a good line of bullshit. The Department of Transportation is government agency charged with regulating civil aviation. Well, he runs it, 45,000 people, and he's run it right into the ground with his diversity.
Yep, that sums it up well. I mean, that's what you get. That's what we've had to deal with for the past 4 years. You have weak leadership who's just run every single department into the ground with these regulations, making sure that they hire people with mental and physical disabilities to be in these positions that actually you need, competent, strong, powerful people. They're not hiring based on merit. They're hiring based on everything but merit. In fact, they're hiring on the opposite of merit in many cases, and that's a problem. Only a government or a group of people that hate themselves would do this, and that's the bottom line. So whether people want to blame this directly for this tragedy or not, it does seem as if there's a little bit of a gray area, a lot we don't know. The bottom line is these departments need reform, and that's probably the best way to start reforming it right off the bat is to get rid of these initiatives and to make sure that we have competent people in power who don't allow this stuff to happen. Like, I've seen the arguments, oh, they have to pass a test. It's like, who cares? They Google the fucking answers. Give me a break. Like, that's going to make a difference. Oh, they passed a test. It's like, okay, well, what's the score anyways? Are they getting a 61% instead of the usual, like, 81, and they technically get a pass on the test? I mean, let's be real here. Let's be honest here. It's a lot more than just a test. We see where they're recruiting. Specifically doesn't seem as if they're getting the most qualified people. Maybe we need a harder test if these people are passing the test, because clearly they're not passing with flying colors if this stuff is going on, if this stuff is happening, and if this is what they're looking to hire. And like I said, in many cases, and like Trump said, it's not even just the race element. It's not just a male or female thing. They're including disabilities. It's like, what the hell's going on? These are important positions of power, and you want mentally disabled people controlling the lives of millions of Americans every year, really, because that's really what the air traffic controllers have to deal with. But it's a big, big mess, and you see this tragedy happen. And like I said, reform is important. Whether it's directly related or not, we need to make sure this doesn't happen again. I think we need the most qualified people in these positions to ensure that this type of stuff doesn't happen again. And everybody should agree with that. Otherwise, they're just dumb. I mean, there's no other way to put it. So, I mean, that's really it for the plain stuff. There's some other stuff going on that's related to this. We've seen this. Psychiatric intellectual delays. And like, this is stuff from Twitter. People are finding this stuff out. And it's good to have a president where it's making its way up the totem pole. Like, this is our presidency. This is what we voted for. This is what we worked hard for. And we like to see that. But, you know, it's only 10 days. You're not going to get the fruits of that directly, but you have somebody in there who's fighting. And it's relieving to see that for the first time in a very long time. Meanwhile, let's check in on the Democrats before we get to some of the Senate drama with the confirmation hearings. You have this whole focus now because they're freaking out. They're upset with what Trump said because he said DEI is bad. It's like, even if you think DEI is not to blame, DEI is bad. There's no way around it. These are initiatives that fly in the face of meritocracy. That is not what the country should be focused on. That is not what our country should stand for. It's not what our country has stood for, what it was founded on, to the point where it's like, let's actually return to meritocracy, where we have the most competent people in the positions of power that matter. And that's the way it is. We need people that are actually going to do the work. We don't need people in power that are just getting it because of something they can't control. And then somebody who's qualified gets passed over in the hiring process for somebody because of something that they can't control. And the Democrats are the ones that are freaking out about this, and they're doubling down. This is part of the reason why they lost the last election. It's why they keep losing elections. When you look at the DNC meetings, they're not learning anything. We saw another poll, two more polls actually, over the past day that came out that showed Kamala Harris is the overwhelming frontrunner for the 2028 Democrat nomination. What does that exactly tell you? It tells you that there's a lot that's going wrong there. There's a lot that's going wrong, and we see that. And they're in disarray, and in many cases they're unwilling to learn from their mistakes. And you're seeing this as there's all this talk about Trump is bad for unwinding DEI programs. Like, if they were smart, they would just be okay with that. They'd just let it rest. They'd focus on other issues, but there really are no other issues they can win on at this stage in the game. And I don't know if they know that, but they're doubling down on losing issues because you can't root the woke out of the party, and it shows. And they're going to have to pay for it again at the ballot box if they're unable to change. I mean, you see them say this. The outgoing DNC chair who oversaw their loss says, unlike the other party that is demonizing diversity, we understand they're calling it their greatest strength. And it's like, your greatest strength couldn't carry you to victory over somebody that you said was the worst candidate ever who tried to overthrow the government. You said that. You said he's a felon. You said he's a horrible president, yet he kicked your ass. And now you think that you're like in such a strong position because you're focused on DEI and your diversity. Like, no, this line of thinking is one of their biggest failures. We don't have to tell them that. It's not like they're going to listen to me anyways, but it's not like I could even tell them how to win. I don't even know how they would win at this point. But it's like they're still talking about how many people believe that racism and misogyny played a role in Harris's defeat, and every single hand goes up, and the guy said, "You all passed," meaning, oh, you guys are all, I guess you would say, you guys are all correct. They believe that that's the reason why. And are these people really dumb enough to run her again? It's possible. I don't know she's winning the polls. I don't expect her to continue to win the polls come 2027, even if she leads them throughout 2026. We don't know what's going to happen. But either way, it's like you just lost by a lot with her. You think you could run it back with her and things are going to be different against J.D. Vance, who's shaping up to be a very strong candidate, a very good vice president? I don't see it. I don't see it. And even the old guard of the Democrats, who are still, so they realize the problems. They're not going to speak up about it because it's clear that they're just going to be bullied into submission by these crazy people. They said that forum, good Lord, we're cooked. So they know it. They know they're cooked. They understand it's a losing issue. Just because something gets 200,000 botted likes on Twitter doesn't mean it's going to be a winning issue. We saw this today again. A very prominent, I wouldn't say a prominent Twitter account, but it got a lot of likes. Donald Trump said he's going to sign an order to build a migrant detention camp in Guantanamo Bay. This is not for just like people that are here illegally, that just like cross the border. These are for like the rapists, the murderers, the drug kingpins, you name it. There's thousands of them. There's 30,000 empty spots at the Guantanamo Bay facility. Donald Trump understands that a lot of these other countries may not want some of those people. So why not just send them to Guantanamo? Why not build the detention camp there for those people who he's trying to get out of the country, who are dangerous people, dangerous threats, objectively speaking? I'm not talking about somebody who crosses the border illegally and doesn't commit any other crimes. Those people should still go back. They should still be deported, obviously sent home. We don't know who those people are, but this camp is like for the actual like confirmed threats to American safety. And the Democrats say, oh, not to be that friend who's too woke, but that's a concentration camp and this is Hitler stuff. It's like, no, you people haven't learned. Like 115,000 likes on this. I suspect it might be botted. I don't know. But either way, it's like you have this mindset. This is prevalent within the Democrat ranks, and it's not going away. Like they haven't learned. Like that's a popular thing. Killers, rapists, murderers, drug dealers, those are not people that most ordinary, normal people want walking the streets, whether they're illegal, whether they're not. And creating or a facility or making sure you can store these people in some facility that's not in America, apparently you're equivalent to somebody who is responsible for the deaths of millions upon millions upon millions of people via genocide, World War II, etc., doesn't really add up in any way, shape, or form. But that's how these people operate. That's how they work. And if this is going to be their mindset, where everything Trump says, the opposite is true, and he's evil, and all these buzzwords that they keep throwing out, even though it's caused them to lose, they're going to keep on losing. They're going to be annoying, but they're going to piss people off, and they're going to keep on losing. And this is not exactly the position that they really should want to be in at this stage in the game. They really shouldn't be, because they keep losing. They lost to Trump, you could even say 3 times in a morality sense. It's like, even if you want to take 2020 at face value, Trump had everything stacked against him, ran a mediocre campaign. It was still a toss-up, tied election, basically, in the end tallies, and that was with a lot of inflated turnout on the Democrat side. So you see him come back again. He wins his biggest victory yet, objectively, And this is how they're acting. You think they'd learn something. They haven't learned a thing. It's very telling, but it's true. And in terms of the confirmation hearings, we have to, I guess, go on offense against some Republicans here, because you do have RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard. Does seem like Kash Patel probably does have the votes. He has the support of Tom Tillis. It does seem as if he's going to probably get at least 50 votes. I'm not worried about Kash Patel one bit. I am worried quite a bit about RFK Jr., and I'm worried quite a bit about Tulsi Gabbard, probably a little bit more so about Tulsi Gabbard. RFK Jr., what they're doing to that guy's a disgrace. Let me be completely honest. I mean, you see Elizabeth Warren just start yelling at him, attacking him out of nowhere. You saw that from a lot of different people. They're just mudslinging. That's what they're trying to do. These confirmation hearings aren't really meant to change any minds, and the Democrats know that. They're basically meant to just be political theater, and the Democrats are a bunch of overgrown theater kids, and it shows, and they're out there just breaking down, yelling, in tears at times, etc., throughout the hearing, and you kind of see that unfold. But you see what's going on. Donald Trump won the election with the help of RFK Jr. RFK Jr. dropped out. He was a candidate. He dropped out. He took his name off as many ballots as he possibly could because he knew he was taking votes away from Trump, and he joined Trump. And Trump gained a lot of support in the election just because he said, I will give Bobby a spot in my cabinet. And this is exactly what Trump is trying to do. So Trump is trying to follow through with the will of the voters. He understands that his victory was helped, not the only factor. There are a lot of things that helped Trump's victory, but you talk about the RFK Jr. stuff. He wants to get the chemicals out of the food. He wants to stand up to Big Pharma, and he wants to make America healthy again. That shouldn't even be partisan. It shouldn't be a Republican thing. It shouldn't be a Democrat thing. It should just be a normal thing. It's a known fact that our food, there's too many seed oils. There's too many food dyes, artificial flavorings, and a lot of other countries will ban this type of stuff. Like I saw a meme that says, well, Republicans back in the day, they supported big gulps and the ability to order whatever you want at fast food. This is like supposedly hypocrisy or something, but here's the deal. Nothing even wrong with big gulps. I mean, I don't really like soda because it is empty calories, but the problem with soda is the artificial, there's corn syrup in the sodas. It's less healthy than if you have just regular soda with cane sugar. That's like the main focus of RFK Jr. It's not you can't eat McDonald's, not that at all. It's what McDonald's is putting in the food is a lot different than what they were putting in their food 60 years ago, and it's making people less healthy. You look at the obesity epidemic, it's not that Americans are eating a lot more, it's what exactly is in the foods. We're poisoning people, basically. That's a problem, and we need leadership that is going to go in there and make sure that we stand up to Big Pharma. The problem is that you have so many senators that are controlled and owned by Big Pharma and big agriculture and a lot of different stuff. And this is exactly what they're trying to stop. The same people who whined about democracy. Trump tried to overthrow democracy. Well, we talk about victory. Donald Trump and RFK Jr., they combined for over 50% of the popular vote. Trump ran on giving him a spot in the cabinet, but these people are going to sit up here and try to say that they can't confirm him for some bogus reason they don't care about. You're seeing it. It's because of these corporations, donors, etc., big pharma, big agriculture. They control the Senate. They control these people. And they want to make sure that they're able to protect their bottom line instead of doing something that actually would benefit the American people, like putting RFK Jr. in Donald Trump's cabinet. They're trying to stop it. It doesn't matter if the will of the voters, which, democracy, right? No, democracy's out the window, even though it's 50% plus one. Yeah, that's not entirely how this works. But the bottom line is a lot of people spoke loud and clear. Donald Trump was able to win in part because of people like Tulsi Gabbard, who he hinted that she would be in the cabinet somewhere, and then somebody like RFK Jr., who, yeah, he's been a lifelong Democrat, But that's not the point. He's not being selected to oversee abortion policy. He's being selected to oversee health in this country. He wants to make America healthy again. If you want to make America great again, that's a big part of it. You have to have a population that is healthy. And you talk about the healthcare system lowering costs. I mean, that's a big part of it too. You wouldn't have so much disease. You wouldn't have so many problems if you actually had healthy food in this country. But a lot of Democrats don't want it. A lot of Republicans don't want it, which is why it's like pulling teeth to see if RFK Jr. could get through. But Tulsi Gabbard's more of a problem because so many more Republicans are just completely owned and controlled by the defense contractors. And Tulsi Gabbard is somebody who's anti-war. She's anti-intervention. She doesn't want all these conflicts going on in, Eastern Europe, the Middle East. She wants to de-escalate. She supports peace. And still, you look at these people, you have a lot of people who are currently a no on Tulsi Gabbard on the right. You have Susan Collins in Maine. That's one thing. She's in Maine. Maine didn't vote for Trump. But then you have Lisa Murkowski, Alaska. How much did Alaska vote for Trump by? 14 points. Mitch McConnell, Kentucky, R plus 31. John Cornyn in Texas, primary his ass out. Put Ken Paxton in there. I think a lot of people can acknowledge that Ken Paxton would easily win a general election at this point. Texas is becoming more solidly Republican. John Cornyn is not a good fit for Texas. He never really was a good fit for Texas. Get John Cornyn out of there. R plus 14 state. Todd Young in Indiana, R plus 19 state. He's voting no. How are these states electing these people? They won't even vote to confirm Trump's cabinet. Even though people voted for Trump's agenda, and Trump's cabinet, unlike Trump's first cabinet, actually represents his agenda. That's why they're voting against it. You didn't have a lot of people that were on the right, that would vote against Trump's first cabinet, despite the fact that you had a lot more rhinos in Trump's first term in the Senate than you do in the second term, like outright rhinos. Mike Rounds is another one. South Dakota voted for Trump by probably 35 points. John Curtis in Utah, who's going to be the next Mitt Romney, everybody understands that. He also is currently a no. This is reported. We don't know if this is going to hold. It's possible that some of these people could end up voting for Donald Trump's cabinet picks, but it's absolutely disturbing that there's so many people out there in the Senate who are in solid red states who are unwilling to just do what their voters want them to do and confirm Donald Trump's cabinet. We're done with the forever wars. We're done with this nonsense. But the politicians, they're still stuck in 2004 in many cases. Not all of them. You have a lot of senators who understand it, get it a lot better than others. But the problem is you have a lot of, and it's mainly deep red state senators. They just don't get it. They're completely controlled opposition. They need to be primaried out as soon as possible. People like John Cornyn. Cornyn, I don't think, can vote no at the end of the day because he's likely going to face a primary. So maybe you get him. Rounds, I think it's similar with Rounds. Maybe you could say like a Bernie Sanders for a Tulsi Gabbard because, they have been friends and he has defended her even recently. But still, you're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Republican defections. You can only have 4 even if you get a Democrat defection to confirm Gabbard, and that's assuming that J.D. Vance breaks the tie. This is why it's important for people to vote down ballot, but also in primaries, because what's going on here? You have so many people that are just bought and paid for and controlled. It's like you have senators in states that voted for Donald Trump by 10, 20, or even more than 30 who are currently voting against his cabinet picks. He can't even form a government because of these obstructionists on the right, because they're controlled, bought and paid for by these donors who fund a lot of people on the left, but then they go into the red states and in the primaries, they find these people. They're there for a very long time. This is the main focus, in my opinion, we need to have. It's not just the swing states. Put up the furthest right or most MAGA person in a swing state. If you go to a swing state and do that, you know, they might fall short, and the establishment will play a major role in sabotaging them in many cases, especially if Donald Trump is not on the ballot. And even if Trump is on, or I guess you'd say a presidential year where you have more voters now because Trump's not likely going to be on the ballot again. But the main takeaway is we need to focus on the deep red state primaries more so than the swing states. I don't mind somebody that's a little bit more, I don't know, I guess you would say a little bit tiny more bit of a rhino in a swing state, or a more establishment guy in a swing state. The problem is you have these people in deep red states where you easily could be able to either primary these people out there if enough people actually showed up and there was a strong effort against it, or B, they shouldn't have gotten the nod in the first place. Like, we need to actually make sure that we vet these candidates, because you and have enough people vote in these primaries, because you're electing swamp creatures in states that vote Republican by 35 points. That's unacceptable. It is. If somebody's like an iffy vote and then they vote yes, or they're a party line vote but they're uninspiring or whatever and they're in a swing seat, I'm fine with that. So long as we're able to, in the states that, and there's a lot more red states than blue states now, you should be able to have about 45 senators that are full-on MAGA in this country, just based on where the states are, where you have red states. You have too many states where the donors are able to go in, buy up these Senate seats, and then these people stab the voter base in the back because of it. We can't allow this to happen time and time and time again. I mean, there needs to be some sort of accountability. Whether these people come home or not, the fact it's even a question should be a problem. This is not 2004 anymore. We're not the party of war. We're the party of peace through strength, and that includes people like Tulsi Gabbard, people like Pete Hegseth, people who Donald Trump actually sees and knows as fit to represent his agenda that the American people voted for. Those people, you don't get to come in here and lecture the voters on what they voted for. Who the hell do you think you are? You have people on the right that do this. You have people on the left that do this. And they could all just go screw themselves, because they're the reason why the country's in the situation that we're in. We need strong leadership, and that includes the cabinet around Trump and the people that he wants to put in positions of power, the people he campaigned on giving them a cabinet spot, the people that he campaigned with and that helped him win a second non-contiguous term. I mean, let's get real here for a second. This should be unacceptable. Call these people's offices as much as you possibly can and make sure that they end up voting the right way on these cabinet picks. It's ridiculous. There's no real reason to oppose Tulsi Gabbard other than, oh, well, she's not enough of a neocon, or she actually calls out the establishment's bullshit. And then there's no real reason to oppose RFK Jr. You know, he's basically said he's not interfering with the vaccines, and that he's just going to speak his mind, but he's going to make sure that we take the money, or we take the chemicals out of the food. But you have all these donors that control the politicians who then act like rabid dogs against him, and they're just trying to make sure that they can protect the status quo. And Donald Trump was elected to break it. And it proves once again, whenever they talk about democracy, they're not talking about the actuality of the people's voice. They're talking about the regime. They're talking about anything that's pre-approved by the regime. That's what it is. And they've been doing everything they can to stop Trump, to stop Trump's agenda, and to stop, more importantly, Trump's movement ever since he came down the escalator. And it's only getting worse and worse, but he's fighting back more and more. And hopefully at the end of the day, he's going to be winning. I think RFK Jr. will get in there. I don't know if we're going to see Tulsi. I'd love to see Tulsi get in, though, as well. So, I mean, that's pretty much it, guys. But we will be taking super chats as well. Super chats we will be getting to as we speak after a quick water break. But we will be getting to these super chats because I know we have a lot of them. So let me make sure we can pull these up, and they're. But I've seen a lot of people say they would never vote Democrat again after the whole nonsense that they saw with RFK Jr. in that hearing. So do with that what you will. Obviously, a lot of those people are voting for Trump, first-time Trump voters, but the more the left does it, the more people they're just losing, which is a good thing. Johnny Heartdog starts us off saying, I've had my thoughts about the crash, so many theories, real and imagined, I'll keep them to myself. Watching RFK's responses and him and his supporters laughing at the unhinged Democrats live was great. There's nobody better for this position. I agree. I think most people would agree. And are we having connection problems at the worst opportune time? It does seem as if that may be the case. We went, 30 minutes without any problems, and then right as we start reading Super Chats, we start having problems. That's not good. But I agree. There's nobody better for the position. He says we're going to make America healthy again. That shouldn't even be political. That should just be common sense. John Waffle H2P for 10 says DCA controllers are especially known to be drunk and incompetent. Well, it's in Washington, D.C., full of a bunch of people who fit that bill. Mainly politicians, but also people in general. Johnny Heartdog for 5 says, I only watched tidbits of the hearings for RFK. He really nailed it out of the park. I didn't watch Patel or Gabbard. Are they worth watching? Patel had a lot of good moments from what I've seen. I didn't see a lot of Tulsi's hearings, but I saw her opening statement and a little bit of it. Johnny Heartdog for 10 says, a sword in front of you is better than a knife behind you. If Murkowski gets the nomination, I'd rather have a Democrat. Same with McConnell. And what's with Graham not voting for RFK? Is that true? Well, Graham is controlled. I mean, he's a puppet. We know that. It's always been true. You can't trust the guy. As for Murkowski, yeah, I mean, at that point, a Democrat, McConnell's not going to run. I mean, he's become a big thorn on Trump's side in part because he's not running for re-election because he would lose a primary. Johnny Heartdog again says just one more thing, but is it true they're trying to bring ranked choice voting in Michigan? Well, maybe just because of the fact that they're going to have that three-way race for the governorship. They might try, which would be smart on their part, but a horrible thing for us. So I would hope not. I don't know how they would get that on the ballot. I would imagine that they probably would fall short anyways in doing so. Let's see. Timothy No says, do you think Tulsi will get confirmed? I think it's 50-50. If anyone doesn't get confirmed, I think it's probably her. Mike Griffin says, hey, you're coping. All people involved from the plane pilots to the helicopter pilots are straight white males. So much. Well, that's not true. First of all, it's not true. Second of all, DEI in general is not just having to do with that aspect of it. If you actually listen to what I said instead of super chatting nonsense, you would understand that they're going out of their way to hire people with the physical and mental disabilities. You think that's a good idea? Do you really think that's a good idea? Even if what you're saying is true, it doesn't change anything that I've said. It doesn't change anything that's a problem with DEI from being a problem with DEI. It's a major problem. And one of the pilots of the military helicopter was a woman, and that's not, I'm not saying that she was necessarily a DEI hire. I mean, she only had 500 hours of logged flights. I'm not sure if that's a lot or not. I haven't done my research on that, I'll admit. But the problem is that DEI, A, it's bad for the workplace, and B, it goes far beyond if you're black, white, male, or female. Rye Guy 1218 says, wasn't there a crash in San Francisco 10 years ago? I don't believe that it was a fatal crash of an American passenger, a passenger jet. So I could be wrong, but I don't think so. Red Whale Politics for 5 says, do you think the best person to run is Mike Rogers for Michigan Senate? Because I'm sure you know the GOP doesn't have the best bench. I don't know how I feel about that. He just lost with Trump on the ballot. Can he beat like Pete Buttigieg without Trump on the ballot? It's possible, but that's mainly because Buttigieg is awful. And I don't know, maybe Trump attacking Buttigieg is going to embolden Democrats to nominate him. I hope that's true, but he's a carpetbagger. He's a horrible candidate for the state of Michigan in particular. So, I mean, if they really want to be that dumb and put him up there, then be my guest. You're going to be throwing away a Senate seat possibly in a year that should be favorable for you on paper. But in Michigan, it seems like 2026 is a great opportunity to rebuild the Republican Party in Michigan, which has been just in shambles for quite some time, aside from Trump winning the state in 2024. Mitchell Ryan says, as someone with a disability, I can assure you I should not and do not want to be in aviation. The Dems will use people with disabilities as props. Exactly. It's nothing to say that people with disabilities can't contribute to society in some form, but I don't want those people being air traffic controllers. I think it's a horrible idea. H Hawk 2001 says, don't know if anyone asked, but is there any reason to worry that Cash and RFK Jr. are, well, they haven't had their, I don't think there's reason to worry about Cash, maybe a little bit with RFK Jr. It's not that they haven't been confirmed yet. It's mainly how these confirmation things are going, because you have so many holdouts on the Republican side. Democrats will always stick together. Republicans won't for some reason, despite the fact that these people are in R plus 20, 30, 35 states. That's my issue. And on top of it, a main reason why that is because Democrats are completely owned and controlled by the establishment. Republicans, at least you have a little bit of a gray area. It's like we have, there's some hope. That's why I think that people that want to form a third party are not really doing doing anyone any favors. It's like we've made headway. We have a lot more headway to make. That's true. I still despise the GOP brand in many cases and the establishment, but it's gotten a hell of a lot better. We can't abandon that and expect to see some return on investment. You just can't. Red Whale Politics says, in your opinion, what's the most realistic number of mass deportations that Trump can get? In my opinion, 6 to 8 million. Yeah, I think that that's fair. Even if he gets 5 million, but then you see a lot of people as a result of the deportations just leaving and going home, that's a major victory because, self-deportation in general, yeah, it works. It shouldn't be the only thing you strive for, but once you start taking people out of the country, you will have a lot of people that will be like, oh, I'm next. I don't want to have to deal with this. I don't want this on my record. I'm just going to go home. And then they go home. If you actually have people that are enforcing the law, you see it. In fact, that's why Donald Trump didn't really put anything new that would instantly cause there to be a lot of border security. That's going to have to probably go through Congress. It's a work in progress, but you see the overall border crossings, they're dipping significantly across our border the second Trump takes office, and it's because people are afraid of what's going to happen. They're afraid of Donald Trump. They don't want to enter the country because they understand that he's cracking down on illegal immigration. He's going to get them out of the country. Biden was like America's doormat. So the whole chart that Trump had that saved his life, you're already seeing more of it, more add to that chart. You're seeing a continuation. American Nerd 1776 says, if Gitmo isn't big enough for the illegals and their home country still don't want them back, then let's reopen Alcatraz for them. I think that's what Don Jr. Said. I don't know if that's going to happen, but it could be an interesting idea. Ideally, we wouldn't have on taxpayer dime these people that we'd be paying for. You send them back, you do whatever. That's why I never understood the arguments against private prisons. Let them be privately controlled. Let them be for profit. We don't want our tax dollars going and providing for people that rape and murder and do X, Y, and Z. XJ Cherokee Bear says Bernie got money from Big Pharma. It's technically true. RFK Jr. called that out in the hearing. Now, maybe he didn't get as much as some of these other senators typically get, but it is 100% true that there were donations. Bernie says it's from the workers, but there was a lot of it, so I'm not entirely sure where that came from. Johnny Hart Dog says recess appointments get it done. Well, I think people misunderstand the recess appointment, because I don't think you could just put somebody in there and say recess appointment. Otherwise, Trump would have done that with everybody. I think that you would just be able to do that without a confirmation hearing where you'd have a vote, and it's still a little bit iffy. So I don't know. Ash K2 says, not sure how I feel about ICE raiding schools and terrorizing children. Might backfire and revert you. No, it's not going to happen. Hispanics support it. Probably more than a lot of white conservatives will, because a lot of them are cucked as well. But no, if you start deporting people which, first of all, they're not raiding schools, but deporting people is not going to cause GOP support among Hispanics to go down. If anything, it's going to cause them to go up, because these are people that are here legally. They're citizens. A lot of these people are born here. Deporting illegals, Republicans were too afraid to touch it for so long because they were worried about the Hispanic vote, but they were already bottoming out with the Hispanic vote. When they actually started to crack down on it, their numbers with Hispanics actually went up, because a lot of Hispanics want this type of stuff. They want safe communities if they're legal, of course. Now, of course, you still have a lot of like La Raza types or whatever, but those people are not going to be voting for Trump anyways, and I feel like there's less and less of them as time goes on. Red whale politics is if Trump's presidency is pretty decent and Republicans don't touch any third rails. If Vance runs in 28, it should be the easy. Yeah, it will be very easy at that point. No reason to change course, and the country is correcting its course. You're on a better track. Then yeah, I mean, we're talking about at that point, if there's no third rails, Democrats will be energized possibly in 2026, but you're talking about limiting a potential wave. Maybe they get the House, but then Republicans somehow expand in the Senate or something like that. They might get a governorship or two, especially with the Michigan drama, if that holds. But yeah. Let's see here. I saw an actual Shikata says Susan Collins looks like she may vote for Tulsi. I don't know. We'll see. She definitely said that she liked the answers or something, but Collins sends a lot of mixed signals at times, so it's kind of hard to read her. Johnny Hot Dog says not getting my hopes up, but maybe Fetterman will save the day. Well, I think Fetterman might save the day in regards to like RFK. I don't know how he's going to vote in terms of Tulsi. He didn't vote for Hegseth, but he'll vote. He might be one of the Democrat defections. He's voted with Trump 84% of the time up to this point. I was kind of surprised to hear that, but it's a small sample size, a lot of like bipartisan bills, so it's not like a ridiculous amount. But let's see. Red whale politics is all these Democrat senators are showing themselves to be the most insufferable clowns in the world. The RFK hearing was hilarious. Yeah, so was the Hegseth hearing, by the way. I mean, it was like they're just like throwing everything they can at him, and in both cases they just were the calm ones, the adults in the room. Red whale politics says it looks like Tulsi and RFK are going to be the only ones that might not get in Trump's cabinet. It's unfortunate thanks to the rhinos. Patriot 345 says Cornyn said he would vote for Gabbard. We'll see. Well, I hope that's true. Johnny Hot Dog says, I genuinely 1,000% believe that if not for RFK and Gabbard, we might not even have a Trump presidency. They deserve to be confirmed. I agree 100%. We wouldn't know, but they definitely played a major role. They were great campaign surrogates. RFK Jr., honestly, yeah, just taking his name off the ballot, if he was running, got like 1% higher, maybe Trump wins, but maybe he doesn't win Wisconsin. Maybe he doesn't win Michigan. Like, you never know how these things work, but it's a good thing that it happened the way it did, and people voted. I voted for Trump. It wasn't the only reason why, but I voted for Trump in part because, yeah, I liked the aspect. It was part of the reason why I was so enthused. A lot of people were so enthused. So you could have, competent people in his administration and people that actually care about the American people that want to make America healthy again, that sort of thing. RFK Jr., he was a big reason why a lot of people voted for Trump so enthusiastically, was because of that. He gave people a reason to vote for him who probably otherwise wouldn't have voted at all. I mean, a lot of people. That's good on Trump for bringing him into the fold, but Donald Trump as a result, because that helped him win. Yeah, if you care about democracy, the American people did vote for RFK Jr. to lead the health department, a prominent cabinet position regarding health, where he'd be able to go in there and make sure that we would get the chemicals out of our foods, et cetera, make our country healthy again, take on big pharma. Mike Oxard says direction of country polls going up massively. I mean, I saw that. That's typical. I think that's typical because you have people that are more, I guess you would say, enthused about the future. Red Whale Politics is how many rhinos do you think we can primary in 2026? Cough, cough, Cornyn and Rounds. I think that those two are on the table. I really do. Depends if we can fund a strong candidate. You can't just take some random guy off the street. I know a lot of people who have done that, who've ran against congressmen, and they're great people with great intentions. But typically, it doesn't work. You need somebody who's prominent enough, who has enough of a presence to challenge him. Like what we saw in South Carolina in the primary against one of the impeachment 10, that guy was like the Speaker of the House or the Majority Leader of the South Carolina State House, and he got like 75% of the vote. It was a total beatdown, and that guy was probably like the least bad of the impeachment 10. So when you find a strong candidate that can primary out these people, you see what happens. It works wonders. It absolutely does. Ice Cream Junkie says watching RFK cook Bernie and Pocahontas over their big pharma contributions was amazing. Yeah, especially Pocahontas. That's just I think that has to be the best Trump nickname. It's definitely one of them. I mean, that was just downright hilarious. But it's true, you know, she's very insufferable. You know, she barely won for Massachusetts. She only won by like 17 points or something like that. It's like if instead of Hogan, they ran Baker and threw the money they threw at Hogan at Baker, Baker probably could have beaten her. Now, I will say that it would have been a waste of money. Baker sucks. But like that's how insufferable that she is, that Massachusetts wouldn't even like her. Ice Cream Junkie says extremely disappointed in John Cornyn. I knew he was bad, but didn't know he was this bad. His constituents voted for Trump by a huge margin, and he doesn't care. They don't care about anything other than the people that got them elected in reality in terms of those primaries, which was largely the donors, because they realize that in many cases they're too big to fail. And we got to make sure that doesn't happen. We have to apply pressure, like serious primaries. That's why Paxton, I like the idea of Paxton going for it. It would suck to lose him as AG, but you know he's a strong candidate in a primary, and he would win the general, maybe a little bit closer. But he's more beloved by the population of Texas than the political class in Texas. Most people see directly through the impeachment BS. He didn't really lose any popularity. We saw that. Manny says, are you worried that Canada's election's getting close? Well, you know, they did the whole Biden thing with Trudeau, kind of, and it's actually worked to an extent where they're polling better. I don't know if it's going to be a liberal victory, though. I think it could be closer than it was because they're really just bottoming out. So I don't really think that the liberals are going to hold on. Poster Tubbs is here, and he says, I'm less worried about Collins than Mitch. I kind of agree. Mitch McConnell has just gone completely insane, really showing his true colors. You know, people at least viewed him as, like he at least always like falls in line. The judges, this, that, and the other thing with McConnell, and that's why people were supposed to, cheer him on and support him for a majority leader all these years. But you look at what he's doing on his way out, he's showing his true colors. It's not surprising. He's become the John McCain, where, you know, how McCain was for getting rid of Obamacare his entire career, but when he had a chance to do it, he'd rather stab Trump in the back because, you know, he was on his way out of the Senate. And, like, actually, to be fair, it is what it is. But Mitch McConnell's doing the exact same thing. He's going to be on his way out of the Senate. And what is he doing? He's stabbing Trump and his base in the back because he can. He doesn't have to face the voters again. That's a problem. Red Whale Politics says this might be laughable, but I'm hoping that John Thune could cause a lot of these rhinos to confirm Tulsi and RFK. Well, I mean, that is true. I will say is that Thune has been somebody who has been a defender of like, we got to get through Trump's cabinet. He's tried to, you know, whip as many votes as possible, which might be a good thing for like Rounds if Rounds is going to vote to confirm if Thune actually follows through. So far, Thune has not been as bad as McConnell. I think it's obvious he can't really be as bad as McConnell without, you know, facing calls to remove him, obviously. but I don't really have high hopes for John Thune, but he's kind of just an unknown factor. And I will say that if Republicans do well in their Senate elections in 2026, I think an underrated factor would be not just the map favoring them, but Mitch McConnell no longer being the face of the GOP. And it's like, yeah, Thune sucks too, but he's not really like a known figure in the eyes of a lot of voters. He's just kind of there. Most voters, probably even if they pay attention to politics, couldn't tell you the Senate Majority Leader now, even if they probably still think it's McConnell, which would be a problem. But it's going to take a while for the GOP to fully change the brand, because Trump's agenda is wildly popular. The problem is a lot of the candidates besides Trump who I guess you would say support that agenda are typically underfunded. They get left out to dry. They have other issues. And we need to make sure the center of gravity in the GOP as a whole is just shifting towards the Trump agenda. It's common sense. If they would, the brand would be strong. It would lead the party to victory, not just during the Trump years, but after Trump is gone, which is why I think Trump teeing up Vance is smart instead of picking some like random old guard neocon like Burgum to be his VP. So we'll see. And Vance has done a great job. He goes on the Sunday shows. He raises his profile. And we saw a poll from, I think it was McLaughlin that did the poll, but, primary polls for 2028, which I talked about a little bit earlier, but I wanted to pull up again because you had two of them. I wanted to make sure we could pull this up because this is, let's see if we could pull this up here. There we go. Where it's just insanity. They're doing the same thing again, or they want to do the same thing again. If you look at this, Harris is at 33% in the Democrat primary. She's at a third of the vote in the 2028 primary already, and that's like a bad poll for her. But still, she's the overwhelming leader. What it shows is that they're in disarray. Stephen A. Smith is on there at 2%. I don't know why the hell they put him in there, but he's probably the best candidate out of these seven. AOC, I mean, they never let her get the nomination. She's probably going to run. She'll try to consolidate like the whatever's left of like the Bernie wing. Josh Shapiro, he's overrated. I don't think he'd make it out of a primary because I think he's relatively bland. It's like Pete Buttigieg, ridiculous. Whitmer is not on here for some reason, and it's pretty obvious to everybody with half a brain she's going to run. She's turning down the Senate bid, even though that would be like a surefire thing for her if she was going to run for it. But it's just one of those things. And then we have this poll here for the Republican side. We could pull this up. J.D. Vance at 25, which, by the way, J.D. Vance is not going to run against Don Jr. because Don Jr. in part lobbied Trump to pick Vance to tee up a successor. So Don Jr. is not going to run. It's very clear. He's very good friends with J.D. Vance. It's clear that J.D. is going to be teed up to be that guy. Maybe he could be talked about for VP. I don't know if Vance would take him. I don't know if he wants the job. He might have a political career. He might run for Senate or something. I don't know what residence he would choose. But Don Jr. will, I think, have some political career at some point. I don't think he's going to run in 2028 because I think Vance is going to be the guy, at least at the top of the ticket. Ron DeSantis is down there at 9%, and he probably will run again. But like I said, I think a lot of the Don Jr. support would just go to Vance. So Vance is really almost at 50% of the Republican primary field. And then you have people like Nikki Haley, Vivek, who his stock is kind of on the downward right now. You have Tim Scott. For some reason, I mean, he had a lot of money last time and just flamed out completely. I mean, he's a weak candidate even in a primary. You have to be a strong candidate for both. Obviously, you have to be strong for the primary to win it. Tulsi Gabbard, she might be on the VP shortlist. And then Glenn Youngkin, who I think will also be on the VP shortlist, but he might run for governor again in 2029 because he'll be eligible again. He probably could win that election, but he can't run for re-election. I don't think he's going to go to the presidential level, maybe on the VP shortlist, but other than that, I think that this is pretty much what you're dealing with is a J.D. Vance nomination. And once again, we're the party that's unified, and they're going to be the party that's in disarray. Are they going to put Kamala Harris out there again? They'll say, oh, well, it's because incumbent parties were losing worldwide. Oh, it's because Donald Trump did X, Y, and Z. Like they'll try to say that like, oh, it was because Elon stole it or something like that, and they'll find a way to rationalize putting her up again. Now, I will say, like the old guard, like the Obama wing of the DNC, the Clintons, like they wouldn't allow it. In my opinion, they didn't even want to allow it this time. But what pull do they still have? Is my question. Do they even have pull? Because if they do, why are they operating like this? It's going to be interesting to see what happens. But either way, the Republicans will unify behind Vance, in my opinion. The Democrats will be in disarray for quite some time. And it's clear because unlike somebody like Mike Pence, Vance is somebody that represents the interests of Trump's base, Trump's brand. He's embraced it in full. I mean, he was a late adopter. I mean, he came around in, 2018? A little bit later than some people, but he's proven himself so far, and hopefully he continues to do so and consolidates the party. I think he's going to consolidate the entire party behind him by even the end of this year. And if DeSantis wants to do another presidential bid where a lot of his crazy diehard supporters goad him into it, like the crazy Twitter people, I mean, I guess we'll have some nostalgic fun just analyzing that whole debacle, because that was crazy in that primary. You know, it is what it is. But let's see. Temporal Forces says, hey, Rep, have you given it any thought or consideration to apply for Trump's... Oh, I applied for Trump's new media initiative. We'll see. There's a lot of people applying for it. I don't know if I'll get in, but I applied for it. If I can get in the briefing room, I will. But it's up to them. I did my part, so if they want to reach out, that's on them at this point. Poster Tubbs says Trump was at 3% in the I don't know why they're polling Trump for 28, let alone polling him on the Democrat side. But there was a poll that had Trump at 3% in the 2028 Democrat primary. So, I mean, that's something. They'd have to repeal the 22nd Amendment for Trump to run again. I don't know if he'd seriously want to run again, even if he could. I think he could win, depending on the circumstances, but he would not run as a Democrat. So I don't know why the hell you would poll that in the first place, but I don't know. Pollsters are weird. Manny says if Roy Cooper runs, we must milk his pardons. I don't even know if he's going to. I know that Wiley Nichols running, and he's very close with Roy Cooper. It's possible that he bows out and Cooper goes for it. So I don't know. Red Whale Politics says, I know it's a little off topic, but did you hear the laughable term woke right? It's obvious that people saying it don't know what wokeness is. Yeah, you have these people, these pseudo-intellectuals, they'll come along and they'll try to coin terms. And it's like, oh, there's people you don't like on the right wing. That's one thing. And then so saying that it's woke, it's like wokeism is a specific set of things that's on the left. It's like saying, what that term MAGA communism. It's like, first of all, you look into it, it's not even communism. It's just a meme term. And you're trying to pass this equivalent of that basically is like some, I don't know, like actual term that carries weight. It's just not how it works. I mean, it's just not a thing. Like, I'm sorry, it's just not a thing. I don't know why these people are trying to make it a thing. In fact, a lot of the people that are saying it are woke themselves. I mean, some of the people they're criticizing, I'm not a fan of, obviously. If you're talking about like some fringe right people or whatever, then just call those people out. But then you create a blanket term of like everybody who supports like actual American nationalism and you say these people are woke. It's like if you're going to be, the conductor of the train of the movement, or if you're going to be the gatekeeper, it's like I don't want to be a part of the movement if you're going to be gatekeeping like actual nationalism. I'm not talking about like far right, fringe right, whatever. I don't really like those people. Those people really don't like me. But you use these blanket terms, who uses the blanket terms again? Oh, wait, that's the actual woke people. that lump people in. You're doing this. They're doing the same exact thing they were doing with the H-1B debate, and I think it's a problem. And I think you have a lot of people who understand wokeness is dying out. So then they were going for, they're operating under this like centrist grift. They understand wokeness is not popular as it was. They understand that it's dying. So now they're trying to say, oh, well, like the far right is woke. But in doing so, they're comparing some people that just have general stances that are normal, that are nationalistic in nature. Maybe they want less immigration. They're like, that's woke. It's like, no, national sovereignty is not wokeness. I just don't get it, but it is what it is. But using blanket terms in general, I'm just not a fan of, because it doesn't really lead you anywhere good usually. So Incel Speedrun for 10 says, after the Biden-Fauci pardon, GOP and Twitter and Rumble went ballistic. Outside of that bubble, most normies forgotten. COVID, don't blame them. It's tiring to beat a dead horse past 2022. It is true, but at the same time, it showcases Biden's corruption. You're pardoning somebody that you understand did a lot of bad things and possibly could be put in jail, but you're shielding them. Biden's going to go down in history as probably just the worst or a bottom 5 president. That's not even recency bias. It's really not. In general, the weak leadership, the things that he did, the pardons, being a total clown show in general, being a meme at his best. The most fondly most people are going to look back at his presidency was, oh, it was kind of funny when he did this thing. But it's like in a deprecating way, because it's like, this is sad. How is this guy president? But he's done. It's over. It's a new era. But at the same time, you have to clean up the mess, and that's going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight. And not everything bad that happens in the first 10 days of Trump's presidency is going to be his fault directly. Just like a lot of people on the left are going to pretend that it is. It's not true. But yeah, we're 3 super chats away from meeting our goal. So if you guys want to help with that, feel free. We'll wrap up the stream when we're done. But it's just it's a mess. You have a lot of people in the Republican Party that still don't get it. You have these weak senators. You have people on the left that they don't know how to change. You have people acting like lunatics all over again, and they don't realize why they lost. They're going to keep digging the hole. They're going to keep losing. They're rooting for the country to fail, I think, because deep down they understand they can't win otherwise. But I don't think that the country is going to fail under Trump's leadership. I think the country is going to thrive. It's not going to happen day 1, day 10, but by the end of the year, I think we're going to be looking back on 2025 as a year of the comeback, possibly. And I hope I'm right about that, but we'll see. I hope I'm right. So we'll look in regular chat as well, but it's just going to take 3 more super chats to hit the goal. And we have, technically, the goal ends in 18 minutes. The stream probably is going to be over before that, so let's see. The worst Dem candidate. Yeah, Pocahontas. She wouldn't get out of a primary. Then again, who's even showing up for Democrat primaries anymore? I don't even know. There was a poll the other day that showed only 30-some% of the American public has a favorable view of the Democrat Party. The Republicans are 50-50. It used to be the opposite 5-10 years ago. Someone says Rubio will probably be VP if we're being... Well, if he keeps up the trajectory he's on, then I'm not necessarily going to oppose that. He's done a great job so far. Whether people trust him or not, stopping foreign aid, calling out mass migration, using the State Department to make his position known on that. Red whale politics is what time period do you think was peak wokeness? To me, it was easily 2020 to 2022. I feel like it was unbelievably bad at the time. Oh, absolutely. I think 2020 was it was hard to get worse, but somehow it got worse. But, there was less of a focus on it because I guess COVID ended after that. And then come 2023, it started to fade. And I think Elon buying Twitter, I think the whole Bud Light thing as well played a role in that, obviously. Jet Politics says the lunatic left is blaming Trump for the crash. Yeah, we covered that earlier. But, I mean, it's just like they're not going to learn. They're going to keep doing it. It doesn't necessarily make them popular when they do it. Something has to be a compelling argument. You're not going to blame Trump for everything. The more they do that, and if Trump actually does something that usually would be considered unpopular, it's going to be like the boy who cried wolf at some point anyways. He's getting more and more popular as it stands now. Just the fact that he has an approval rating above water should tell you that, because even when he first took office, he didn't get a honeymoon period. Maybe like one day he was at 47% approval, 46 disapprove, and the next day he went under. So, I mean, we're still waiting. He's going to address Congress, I think. He's going to do like the State of the Union, but it's technically not a State of the Union because it's the year after a president. So, I think wokeness started in like 2014. So we could get just 2 more super chats, teal and above, we would hit our goal. James says, is Phil Scott the worst governor? Worst Republican governor, yeah. I don't know if worst governor. I think Newsom is probably worse, but he also controls a much larger state, so I don't know if there's, I mean, Scott's probably worse than some Democrat governors. He's just as liberal as somebody like Biden, despite having an R next to his name. I don't even know why he continues to call himself a Republican. I don't even know if it does him any favors up in Vermont. Red Whale Politics, we're 1 away from our goal now. Says, it's crazy that Trump is the most multiracial and cultural coalition of any Republican ever, I'm sure. Yeah, after 10 years of them calling him all the worst names, it hasn't really seemed to work. And then they keep doubling down on the strategy. And then every election comes around and they keep losing minority voters and they keep scratching their heads. It's like insanity. But they're getting mocked. They don't have the same cultural control that they used to have during Trump's first term, and they can't exactly handle that. So they keep delving into new levels of insanity, and they think that's going to win them the next presidential election. If Republicans would actually just show up for midterms or special elections, or Trump's base, I guess you would say, would show up for those sort of things, then we'd have it a lot easier than we currently do. But at that point, would they even learn anything? I don't know. And we hit our goal. American Nerd 1776 says, Secretary Rubio on acquiring Greenland. This is not a joke. This is not about acquiring land for the purpose of acquiring land. This is in our national interest and it needs to be solved. Yeah, it's true. Rubio's done a great job. And I think that the rationale behind the pick is smart because Trump wants to focus the energy of our world affairs to the Western Hemisphere, and who is better to do that than somebody that's as knowledgeable about it as Marco Rubio. And so far, he's done a great job. This is not the Rubio we saw in 2016. This is not the Gang of Eight Rubio. This is MAGA Marco. This is Big Marco, Marco 2.0, as many people put it. Whether people trust his transformation or not, I think it's a good thing. And I hope he continues to do well. Marilyn Degatti 83 says, can Trump use a recess appointment for his picks? I don't think he's able to just say recess appointment and then put these people in. I think it's a little bit deeper than that. Temporal Forces says, hello again. On the Canada situation, we will have to suffer another Liberal PM starting on March 9th. It will likely be globalist banker Mark Carney, who oversaw our economic woes under Trudeau. That's unfortunate. I would assume it would be somebody that'd be like his right-hand man taking over, just like you saw with Biden and Kamala in the election. until speedrun says my favorite pastimes 2025 Reddit meltdowns. The amount of seething post-inaugurations crazier than 2016. It's hard to tire of the winning. Well, Reddit's one of the only platforms that's gotten worse because they banned everything that's even remotely center-right. It's like the YapMS subreddit, which isn't really the biggest fan of me, is probably the best subreddit that's remaining because at least they have a sense of humor, unlike a lot of other subreddits. The other subreddits, because Elon Musk had his hand at 60-degree angle, they decided to say, oh, well, we won't post links to X anymore. Then they do the pinned post, and they say, we will ban the letter X, but it's obviously satirical. You know, even the sub that's like half liberal, half conservative, that's like the sub. And they're not fans of me particularly. There's a lot of dumb people. There's some smart people there, but there's a lot of dumb people. But like that's the gold standard now for a subreddit. It's insane. Even like all the other subreddits, Reddit's just a disaster. I really don't think it's salvageable. It's not representative of the general public. If so, Kamala would have won 95% of the vote, and we know she didn't. So Mike CARC says, what would the process look like to get term limits? It would have to be through a constitutional amendment. So it'd be the same process as that. You'd have to have state houses ratify it, houses of Congress ratify it. Red Whale Politics says, I love the new Rubio. If he keeps it up, maybe he should be VP for JD, at least be top 5 for consideration. He'll be top 5 for consideration, in my opinion. I don't know if he's going to get it. It might be somebody we don't know. I mean, do we really know much about J.D. Vance 4 years ago today? I really don't even think I knew he existed, but look where he is now. So that's a good thing. But I will say that after this super chat, I think we're going to wrap it up. Temporal Forces, again, appreciate the super chats, guys, says the good news will be that we will have more likely throughout the Liberal Party and have a PM that will work with Trump and restore our special relationship with America. Just wait, please. Yeah, or you guys could be our not the 51st state, but a territory, if you guys wish. I mean, we'd like to have the economic control of the region. But I say that knowing it would never probably realistically happen. But I think something could, like Trump saying that as, 51st state, there's a grain of truth in that too, where they could work something out where, economically fewer regulations, where we're not going to be ripped off on trade. And I don't know, maybe Canada goes to the US dollar or something like that. If they could work out a deal between the two countries, that would actually be huge. And maybe in turn Canada would tighten up their immigration policy, which has just been insanely out of control for them. That probably would incentivize us more likely to do that. But I don't know. It's not as serious as Greenland or even the Panama Canal, but it's fun to think about for sure. But I know that most Canadians don't want to do that or join us even as like a territory or like an EU-style union. But some economic relationship would be ideal. I don't know what that would look like, though. But anyways, we're going to wrap things up. Thanks for tuning in. Like the stream before you go. Subscribe. Hit the bell. I will see you guys with a video tomorrow. Last video of the month. So anyways, guys, it's been a good stream. Thanks for watching. Red Eagle out.